Thanks for all who jumped on today. What we're going to do is just walk through creating a catalog item. I'm going to walk everyone through creating just some of the standard things for creating a catalog item. Briefly, a couple of slides in the deck. Okay. Housekeeping. If you got a question, just raise your hand, drop it in the chat. I'll be looking at it. No issues there. But if you need anything, questions at all, just go ahead and ask. I'll be glad to answer them throughout this. Also, if we get off of this webinar and you need anything from me, you want to reach out via LinkedIn, that's also fine as well. All right, again, just covering catalog. I'll be doing a series of these. So this one, I'll create the basic, talked about the catalog item, and then you'll see others come out around this as well. All right, let's just dive in. So again, create a catalog item, a brief definition of what a catalog item is for those who don't know, okay? A service catalog item is a predefined requestable service or product offered within the service catalog module of ServiceNow. Now, this is my thing. It could be shown on the service portal where end users can request goods, services, access to resources, software, hardware, support services through a user kind of interface, just a friendly user interface. That is the service portal, right? Key features of a catalog item, very simple. You have the user interface, that's the form, right? The workflow, that's the engine that drives after the submission. There is automation in there, so you can trigger either scripts, integrations, etc., right? You can also define SLAs, which is service level agreements, how long it should take rather, for this particular catalog item to be completed. And then lastly, notifications. So in general, a catalog item simplifies a request process. I like to call it the corporate Amazon, if you will. Probably a bad term. Please don't sue me, Amazon. I'm just joking. But that is pretty much essentially what a catalog item is. So what we're going to do now, I don't like to kill you with PowerPoint. So if you came here for a bunch of decks, I am so sorry for you. What I did come here to show you is actually the ServiceNow system and walk you through creating a catalog item. But first things first, what I like to do is kind of help you understand what kind of information you'll get from kind of requesters or stakeholders. Like you may get specific information from them via email, but if you're going through what I like to call a workshop, where you're gathering requirements, which is a meeting where you talk to the customer about requirements and what they want on the form. Now, what I'm going to share now is a template that most people use, some use. You can find this on Now Creative Service Now. This is a sample requirements, if you will. It's a useful template. I think everybody has their own flavor of it. But again, just very briefly, I wanted to show you what you could see because this is what I'm going to potentially build in our walkthrough here. So this is a Word document template that basically describes the actual service catalog item we're going to create today. So what we're looking at is we say, hey, we want a catalog item with name of request to attend the knowledge conference, right? It states the service catalog it will be in and the category. I'll talk more about this as we get into actually building it. The short description if we have it, the metadata, we'll use this for searching within the service portal. So if anybody search on these words, ServiceNow, Knowledge 25, and CreatorCon, it would also bring back this item. If there was delivery time, picture, et cetera, et cetera. I can make this template available. It's not mine. I want to be very clear. It's on Now Create. I could send everyone out the link and then also send you this actual template if you would like it. So again, a way to capture requirements that helps you translate them into actual things that you can build into ServiceNow. I know everybody wants to run and build, but if you don't know what you're building, it's kind of tough. So this helps drive the why you're building what you're building, okay? All right. I think oh wait, we got a question out there. Okay, chat is disabled. I'll enable, I'll see if I can enable chat and I'll be back, but I'm gonna keep going and I'll make sure we get chat up and going here in 2 seconds. If not, you can throw your questions and answers in the Q&A and that would be fine as well. All right, so I'm gonna share now my screen for the ServiceNow system so we can take a look at the catalog items. Now, I'm going to warn everyone, I say bad jokes throughout. If you don't laugh, it's fine. Okay, I'm joking. If you need to laugh at all of my okay, it's very bad jokes. But everything that I say, I have a little jovial humor. I just like to have a little fun with it as it's a very basic ServiceNow system, but want to make sure that we're enjoying what we're doing. So one thing you hear from me is I'm old school. I've been around ServiceNow for about 16, 17 years. So some of my ways may be the older ways, some ways you learn may be newer. Okay. I'm going to do my best to show you both and then we'll talk through it all. Okay. So first things first, we have our requirements, which I showed you. And that was to create a catalog item to call request to attend knowledge. Okay. So to do this, right, there's multiple ways. Now I'm going to go your new school way. Okay. I am not a new school person, but I'm going to help everybody, those who's learning. We have the catalog builder in all its glory. Okay. So from the catalog builder, and I'm sorry, let me back up and go to where it is actually in the system because I favored it. So catalog builder can be found under the service catalog, right? When you click on it, it opens in a new tab, which you will see here, and you can create your new catalog item, right? So we're going to go ahead and click create new catalog item, and it's going to go through this nice, beautiful UI interface. There's the bad joke you got for you there. You could choose your template if you want. We're going to just use a standard item in the service catalog and say use this template. Now from here, it takes you to your details. Now, if you recall in our template, we had the name, request to attend knowledge, right? And in our description, I'm just grabbing that detail there. We have the short description, which is this form is used for requesting approval to attend the ServiceNow Knowledge Conference, just more descriptive data. And then you can add additional details if you wanted. You can add an image and then more information if you would like below. So next, we're going to say continue the location. Now, this location is where within the service catalog would you like it to be? Which category? Now, for this, I'll choose. I'll leave it here. Actually, I'll leave this. Let's just edit the categories really quick. We only want it into the can we help you. So I'm going to take all of these out and say it's only going to be in can we help you for now. So I'm going to save that. Now you can see here, I'm just going to pause for a second. So we entered our details, okay? Our details are specifically just the name and description, and I can add more description and image if I would like. Now we're at the location. The location is not the physical location, but the digital location is going to be within either the service portal or the service catalog to be clear. Okay. We're going to find it in Can We Help You? Next, we go to the questions. Now, this is where my old school brain doesn't like the UI, but it's okay. Those who do enjoy it, it's fine. So we insert a new question. And you have options to choose from, okay? You have text, option, choice, date and time, a display label. Now, for those who've been around the platform for a long time, these are very limited options compared to the old school way, as I like to say, okay? But I'm going to do one question, and then I'm going to flip back to the old school way to show you a different way of creating the same item, okay? So we're going to just create one item called for text. Let's do a choice. And the question label, let's make it a drop down with fixed values. the question label is going to be, let's just call it, this for now, we'll call it, wait, I want to call this, what meal would you prefer? Okay. Hope I spelled that right. Prefer, maybe one. There we go. Yes. All right. So the things is on the actual question itself. You would see in the details, we gave it a question label, and then it automatically gave us a name, right? The name value is what I like to call the database value, okay? The database value in ServiceNow is when it gets inserted into the database. That's why you don't see any spaces, right? Automatically does underscores for you. Now, for me, this is good. Well, I'll take this back for a second. This is great that it automatically does this for you. So if you need to use this in any scripting, that's the value you would use, the name, in order to put in your scripts. We'll talk about that in another webinar about scripts. However, I like my names or my database names to be a lot shorter. I don't want to always have to put in a long name. So what I like to do is say, I might do something like instead of saying what meal would you prefer, with the underscores, I just might just take it back and say what meal. It makes it easier, trust me, down the line when you're doing coding to have shorter database names or names. So it's, you're not typing or writing out longer things in your script. So next, because it's a drop down, I can continue the choices. I can say include none. That means when I'm on the drop down, it'll say none. And to the right here, you can see it has my nice preview. Okay. I only have none. So let's start adding some choices, right? So what meal I want? I want no pork, please. I also want give me all the pork. And then finally, the good old veggie, right? Or vegetarian for short. Now, if you see our preview, we have our options. Now I'm going to pause there because I see I have questions. Let me just check in there. No worry about the interruption, Mohammed. You're fine. Could you use alias and encode to refer to longer table names? Yes. So like what I did there, I can shorten the names. So I can use, so let me read back the question again. The question was, could you use aliases in the code? Yes. So essentially what I did is I shortened the name. Now this name is not truly into a actual table. It's actually just fields on a form. Now it is into the variable database as they call it, but you could shorten the name like I just showed you, and it just helps with scripts. It is not messing up or causing any issues the name you give it. Okay. Just long as it doesn't have spaces in the name value, you are fine. All right. So next we go insert the question. Now, what I'm about to do is show you the other method, and I'm actually going to go ahead and save this for now. I think I saved it. Yeah, I did. Okay. So let's just do a quick preview of our form. And we'll say on the portal, which is already selected. So you can see very quickly what meal you prefer. Simple. Okay. Now I'll show you a little bit of my old school, right? There is some limitations here that I like to call in the GUI. To me, it's a lot of clicking through. It is very good. This view is very, very good for those who are starting out. Okay. For those who are starting out, the UI builder helps you along, helps you see. It's very good. But now I'm going to take it back to the other side just really briefly. So in the catalog definitions, maintain items, I'm going to again show you where that is. Maintain items is also under service catalog, catalog definitions, maintain items. Now we're going to change our sort here. You can see already we have our request to attend knowledge, but I'm going to create a new one for the second here. Let's just create a brand new one. I just want to start over to show you the little difference. So now, without the UI or the GUI that we just did from the UI builder, we're going to create that same item, but I'm going to call it, just old school, which I am, right? I'm going to grab the same information. Now you're going to say, Dante, why do you like this view? I have everything on one page. I'm not clicking next every 5 seconds. I'm not going next, 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 next. So for me, I started here. Okay. Just want to be very clear. I started in this view. UI Builder came later. So since it came later, for me to switch over was kind of like, I just like this view. It's more comfortable. But again, you do the method that's more comfortable for you. But I want to make sure that I'm joking very much so when I say um, I don't like the GUI necessarily, but it is definitely good. But my whole piece is this is easier for me. Okay. So I'm showing you both so you can see the best way for you. But again, one single pane of glass here. So again, I choose the catalog, right? I'm going to choose a service catalog. And then I'm going to choose the same option we did. We said, can we help you? So I chose a catalog. Can we help you? A little less clicks, so be it. Down here below, we have a couple of settings, but I'll come back to that in 2 seconds. So once I save this, I'm going to right click and save. Now on here is on the three-lined icon. I can also do the same thing and hit save. So right clicking here or going to the three-lined icon, give you the same kind of menu. Okay. Once I save it, I now have what we call the variables. Now, Dante, what is that? I am glad you asked. The variables are the same thing we had. So let me close this so I can give you the standards as questions. So if you kind of take them interchangeably, questions and variables are the same thing. So in here, I'm going to create a new one, right? And I'm going to go back to my file here. And we are going to pull up what do we really have. So the first things first, as I like to choose, is the requested for, right? Now this variable type is for the user, right? The people who log into ServiceNow, this automatically pulls them in to the system, and then this is for the requested for, and that's how it will show up. So we'll give it a name for the question, as you can see here, as requested for. Again, same thing as we had on the other side for the UI builder. It gives us the database name, right, automatically. Some options that are here that you don't have is the order, right? And then also we can do a little bit more things like auto populate, which I'm going to show you on the next variable I'm going to create. Now, on the requested for, because this is what they call a reference to the user table. So when you choose this, here, let me go ahead and save this. And I'll come back into it in 2 seconds. So let's go ahead and also do a try it on this, which is the same way of doing a preview. As you can see, it automatically populates the person who's logged in. So this variable type is the requested for. It says sees me as system administrator, and it says, hey, I know who you are. So this obviously must be for you. But we can also change that if we want to another user, right? As well. Now, moving on to the next variable, we want to say, okay, this person, they want to request to go to the knowledge conference, and I'm submitting it for myself. Okay, who else should we think would be pertinent information here? Who's their manager, right? So let's go in and add the manager value to this. Now, for those who've been in ServiceNow a while, you might say, well, Dante, you can dot walk to the manager if you want. I do, but I want to show something here by adding the manager. So I'm going to add an order. You also can add mandatory options here and read only. So I could say, hey, I want to make sure the manager is mandatory. I could have did that on the requested for as well. So I'm going to pick manager here. Now, the type of variable I want or question I want is a reference. So I want a reference to a table in ServiceNow, okay? So the table I want is the user table. That's where all the user data is stored. So what it should have is, all the users, their managers are all in the user table. So since we want the manager, we want to get the user table. Now, I can type in user, right, for the table, and I can scroll till I get to just user by itself. Let me get to it. Hang on, it's coming. I went too far. Right? User, and you want the sys underscore user. That's one way of doing it. Or I can type in the table name since I know it, which is sys underscore user, and that will give me a much shorter list, and then I can get to it that way. One other thing, as you say, I don't want all users, right? Now, by design, ServiceNow doesn't allow people who are not administrators to see inactive users, but just to be sure, I can put a reference condition here, right? So I can say, hey, let me do a reference qualifier condition, and there's a field called active, and we only want to see active users. So if active is true, right, then I want to show those users. But again, our question is the manager, right? I want the requested for's manager. So to do this two ways, right? If when the requested for has a value, right? When a requested for has a value, like a name in it, we can look at that person's user record and auto-populate this field or this question based on their user record, right? So the user record will have the manager associated with it. So we can pull that down automatically. Now, the beauty of ServiceNow is today, I think it was like 3, 4 releases ago, they came up with this auto populate. And I love it because we used to have to write client scripts for this. But now we could say, hey, the dependent question is what? What do we want to base this value from? So I'm going to pick the requested for, right? Which is referencing the user. And we're going to go and dot walk to the manager field of the requested for. Now, what does that do, Dante? I'm glad you asked. What it does, it auto populates the manager of that person who's in the requested for. So let's go ahead and just submit this. Give me 1 second. I'll make this read only because we don't want them to change their manager or change to someone who is not their manager. So since we're getting it from the user, that's how we're going to do it. All right. So I want to pause there to see if we got any questions out there in the Q&A. Everybody think we're all good? Yes, so far so good. If you do, please feel free. All right, so let's just go ahead and give it a try. So if we look here, I don't have a manager. So let me go and update my record really quick. I'll just give me 20 seconds. I'll create a user that has a manager. And I'm going to have a little fun. And yes, I did this on purpose. We're going to go ahead and go L. James. We're going to go Mr. LeBron James and not Bronny, right? And let's go ahead and we will save that. Then we're going to put another one here that's called M. Jordan. Michael Jordan. Isn't it funny that Michael's middle name is James? Okay, anyway. All right, so we're going to insert and stay that. Now I have two users that I created. I got LeBron and Michael. Let me add the manager here to my list view. Now, I don't want everybody arguing over the questions, okay? The manager of LeBron James will be Michael Jordan, okay? And if you don't like it, you're just going to have to live with it. I'm so sorry for you. So I turn the chat off. You can't speak. That's what it is. Michael's the GOAT. Sorry. Okay, moving on. Moving on. Breathe. Okay. Sorry, I just like to have a little fun. All right. So in this case, again, we were talking about the requested for, right? Manager auto-populating. So now, since we have LeBron James has Michael Jordan as his manager, it auto-populates the manager value from LeBron James' user record that has Michael Jordan as his manager. Very simple, very easy. I'm really, really, really jealous that all of the people who started using ServiceNow the last year or two get to use this because we had to write scripts to do all of this. Okay. All right. So one thing that I forgot to do was on the requested for, I did not put an order. If you could see it right here, there was no order. Two ways I can edit this. Okay. I can go back and click in here and edit, or I can do what we call a list edit. I can double click right here, and I'm just going to add an order of 10 to make sure requested for is always first. Now, of course, it had 0 order. Yes, it's going to be first with that, but just to be thorough, I add an order there. Now, the next field we're going to add for this, we're going to make sure that we have the following details in here. We want to have all the fields, which is justification. So now we says, you know what you're requesting because of the name, but why, right? Why do you feel like you can go to knowledge? So we'll add another field, the type of justification, multi-line text here, which is a large field. And I'll do 30 here because of that. We will make this also mandatory. And then in our question, we'll just put in justification. Now, just looking at the types really quick, they have multiple here that you can utilize. I won't go over every one of them, but some of the main ones is a reference. We have what we call a select box is another one that you'll see a lot of. Select box is a drop down. Don't ask me why they don't call it drop down. They call it select box. Reference is like what we said that we requested for in the manager, looking at a table to select a value. And then multi-line text is basically a big text box, okay? All right, so we have our 3 fields, right? Very simplified, very easy, right? We have, again, I'm gonna, just for goodness sake, to tell everybody who's his manager, right? And this is a test, right? So that is our information that we want on our form for now. Didn't want to spend a lot of time on the fields just yet. I will, the next one I will come back and do a lot of field validations and client scripts, but I wanted to get you over to the Flow Designer flow, okay? And talk about how do you make this thing work? Because right now we just have data on a form. We have fields. That's it. So now we need the engine, which is the workflow, okay? So going back to the catalog item. Okay, I see we got a question here. Hang on one second. Why is order support important? Thank you, Lynn. Good question. Order is important, and I'm going to show you why right now. So Lynn asked a great question. If I put these out of order, they will not be in the method or show in the way that I want to see them. So if I say requested for is 50, right? So now it's at the bottom, right? So let's go ahead and go try it again. Watch what it does. It's at the bottom of the form. So the order is truly the order of how you want to see the actual data. And Lynn, thank you for that question because I want to actually show one final piece before going to the Flow Designer flow. We're good on time. Okay, I want to spend half time on this and half time on the flow. So I'm going to put the requested for back to 10. Okay, so we can have that back in the front. And just because you asked, Lynn, I'm just going to show you again. You can see it go back to the top, right? Going back into here, there's another thing you can do, right? You see these fields, they're lined up just one after the other onto the bottom. But let's say I wanted the requested for and the manager to be side by side, right? What can I do? So in this view, I can click new, and they have a type called container, right? So the container, you have to start, and then there's also a container end. So you could tell it where you want to start this container and then where you want to end it. I'm going to show you exactly what it does. So I want this to start before the requested for. So if you recall, the order is 10. So this one I have to do before 10. I could do 9, I could do 8, but I do increments of 5 or 10. That's just my thing. Long as it's the number before or after where you want it, it will fall in the right place. So this one does not necessarily have a question because it's not going to show, but I just like to call my container start, right? And then the type specifications here, you'll see I can do alternating sides, right? That means, side by side, basically. And I'll pick that for now. Now, hang on, let me say this. If I wanted to do a title list, I could do that, but I'm going to hold on that and just show you just general what the container does. Okay, first I start, but I have to have a end because I don't want the justification to show side by side either. So I'm going to say in order of 25 before 30, I'm going to say that's where it's going to end. So only requested for and the manager will be side by side. So the container end will be here. We're going to put it in, I believe it's 35, I think. I think I said 35. Oh, messed up. It's 25. 25. So now if we do that, try it again, there it is side by side. Okay. There's a lot on containers we can discuss, but I want to just give you how you could do that for now, and we'll leave that there. One last thing on variables are questions. So they have a couple areas that you can deal with. Default value is if you want to always default it to something, but I want to talk about the annotations. So annotations just help you give help, right? Show help text. This is that informational text, instructional text that you may want to do, right? You may want to give to the user. Now, this is overkill. We said requested for, so I'm going to toggle show help. Now there's a value that says always expanded. It could collapse or show or not. So I'm going to leave it not always expanded to show you. So we're going to say, we're going to call it more information. Use this field for the requester. Okay. All right. We'll just do that for now. We're going to update this variable. And then we're going to do a try it again. And then you see the more information right there. Now, if it's always expanded instead of being collapsed, it would automatically show like this every single time until a user say, I don't want to see it. All right. Cool. All right. So that very briefly, because there's so much I could talk about this entire thing, but I want to stay just in this place of just creating. What I wanted you to understand is how to create a catalog item, how to put questions on that actual form. Now we're going to talk about how do we design the flow. And I'm going to tell you just like my little tips and tricks. So for Flow Designer, to put a flow within here, first let me show you where, well, we'll come back to this. For Flow Designer, we go to Flow Designer Weather, and we pull up the Flow Designer Workflow Studio, if you will. And once it comes open here, we're going to be on the flows, and we want to create a new flow, okay? When creating a new flow, you give it a name. What I like to do is I like to take the name, a request to attend knowledge, and put it as the flow, right? And I might put something like flow behind it. Does it really matter? It to me, I would call it, if you want to call it Dante best practice, I think every developer out there, it needs to make sense to where where somebody can read it and say, oh, this is the flow for that, right? So that's why I like to take the name of the catalog item and say that. So we're going to go ahead and hit build flow. So once you hit build flow, you're automatically on the flow designer flow that you just created. There's nothing going on yet. So we're going to add a trigger. So what happens? How does this flow start? Right? That's the trigger. The first thing we want to do is go and open up the trigger by clicking that plus sign. And for this, we want to type in, it's going to trigger from the service catalog, right? Now I typed that in and you're going to say, well, where was that, Dante? If you come down here, it's underneath the application service catalog. So once I choose that, I am done. That is it for the trigger, for the catalog item only. If you're doing a flow for something else, there's a lot more you can do, but just for the catalog item, you're saying it's going to trigger from the catalog service catalog. Done. Now, what is my first action? For me, what my first action is, I like to get all the catalog variables, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do, there is an actual action here for getting the variables. So there's get catalog variables. Now you're going to probably say, Dante, why do you do this? And I'm glad you asked that question. The reason I do this is because if I want to use any variable data in my flow, I would already have it because I got all those variables. If I don't do this, right, you could do, you could do other things to do it, but if I don't do this, it's not readily accessible. So let me show you. So the first thing in this action, it says, hey, I want the request item here. So you need to make sure you put from the data pill, right? And it tells you drag and drop submitted request pill. So our request item record is right here. We're going to drag and drop the request item for the get variables. Then it's asking you, where is the catalog item you want to get the variables from? Now, we want to get them from request acknowledge old school, right? I'm going to choose all of these variables because I want them all to show up in my flow. Now, once I choose them all and move them over to selected, I'm going to click done. But one thing I want to show you is if you look to the right, they're now available for me to use in this flow. Ready and accessible. And I'm going to show you how I use them. Okay. So the next thing is the next action we're going to do is now in our requirements, it says we have two approvals, one for the manager, then another one from IT finance. Okay. So I'm going to choose the action and I'm going to ask for approval. Okay. So if I choose ask for approval, what record are we approving? Which again is the item, right? Once they submit the catalog item, they're going to approve that item record. So we drag and drop the item pill there. However, there's another way you could choose the actual record from the data pill. So instead of dragging and dropping all the time, there's the data pill selector here, if you will, for the record. I can choose that. And then there's the trigger. And then there's the requested item record. And same way, same exact way. So once I do this, there's rules right below. You're going to say what's going to happen, right? When someone approves, it does what, right? So I'm going to say when someone approves or rejects, right? Anyone can approve or reject. So let me stop here real quick. I don't want to go too deep, but I want to explain. And these options for the approvals, so I could say anyone. That means the first person who approves, it's approved for that actual approval activity. If I say all need to approve, if it's a group, that means every member in that group needs to approve. I hope that makes sense. So same thing, right? Just want to give you those two. I'll come back for the rest. I'm just going to say anyone for now. And for this one, we're also going to choose from the data pill, and I want the manager to be the first one to approve. So you see, I got it from my variables because it's here. But again, I could drag and drop, or I can choose from the data pill, which I got get variables, and there's the manager. Okay. All right. So that's the first approval, right? Now, what I like to do is I like to annotate my actual activities. So since this says actual approval, I like for people to read my flows. Okay. So if you came here, looked at my flow, you don't necessarily have to open everything up. You could see my annotations and say that. So to do that, if you hover over the activity, you go to the right and you could add an annotation. All it is just friendly words. So what I'm going to say is, manager approval, right? Now, look at this. You could easily see, oh, it goes for manager approval first, right? So the next step is, and there's so many ways to skin this cat. So if somebody beats me up later and say, Dante, you could have did like this. There's 5 million ways to do this. But the next thing I do is we now want to go to the procurement approval, but we don't want to go to procurement if the manager says no, right? So we have to say, okay, fine, if, right? So again, this one has actually a condition label. So this is just a label you can put text in. So as you can see, I already have it here. If manager approves, now I shorted the manager here, right? So now this is only me writing words. That's it. I haven't done anything yet. So I have to say, I'm going to go get over here in the data pill, it has the approval state. So basically the outcome of that approval, once it's done, we're going to have a state of approved or rejected. So again, I'm going to pull that over here for my if condition. So if this approval is approved, right? Now I'm done with this. So once it's approved, then what, right? Then the next thing is we're going to do another approval, right? Which is the second layer approval. We're still looking at the request item. And we're going to do the same thing if anyone, hang on. Wait, I'm sorry, wrong one. Approve or reject. Anyone approves. Now this one, we're going to pick a group, right? Now in here, I think I got a finance. Come on. There we go. That's fine. I use finance guy. So the finance team would then need to approve, right? Do we have budget, right? So that's essentially what I'm trying to get at, right? The manager. So if you think about the flow logically, right? Hey, I want to go to knowledge 25. My boss needs to approve. Next, finance needs to say we have budget in our training budget. They're going to approve. Then we're good. Okay. So after these two, so again, right? What's the next thing? So if the manager approves, now if again, so if procurement, no, finance, sorry. Finance approves. Now we got to go to the next layer. We don't want the same one. We want the second approval, right? Now that approval state from the 4 is approved. Now I know I'm taking you through multiple approvals. I just wanted to show you how you do 2 levels in Flow Designer. This is just one method you can do, okay? So if finance approves, now we're going to go ahead and create the fulfillment, which is a catalog task. Okay. The catalog, very clear, not just task, but catalog task. See, I got a question up here. Let me go to it. Why do we always choose ServiceNow Core? So good. I hope I say your name right, Prachi. It's not always, but majority of the items that you would use, or actions, be very clear, that you would use to when you're designing a catalog, majority of them will be in the core. Core just means, and let me just pick on one really quick. Let me close this because I want to answer this question. That's a great question. I'll just do this one here. So there's several different um, flow spokes. So the core is just everything you can use that's basically, I want to call it out of box. And these are just the base items that you would use. There's so many out there, even for integrations that are not in the core. So if you have Integration Hub installed, you can have spokes for Azure DevOps, Slack, Jira, et cetera, et cetera. So the core is just based to ServiceNow themselves for the basic items or actions that you would use in developing your flow. That's why we use core majority of the time, not always. It depends on your requirements. So again, if I had an integration, then you will see integration spokes that will be pulled in as well, like I said, for 365, et cetera, et cetera. I hope that answered your question. Okay. So let's go back. So what we're saying is if both approved, right? We got this disapproval for manager. If they approve, then we go to finance. If they approve, we have the catalog task. Now on the task, you'll see everything relates back to the item. And it tells you right here, this is mandatory. It says, give me the item again. I'm going to go ahead and do it because it's going to be related. This catalog task or fulfillment task, if you will be related to the actual item once it's submitted. Now in here, now we can set field values, okay? So one thing I like to do is I like to play around and give more descriptive information when I give the fulfillment teams their catalog task or their fulfillment task that they're going to work on, right? So what I like to say is maybe it's hey, what do we want to call this? I'm going to knowledge here. So purchase, knowledge, conference, what I want. hotel suite on the top floor. And there we go. First class, right? Yeah, let's do that. It's too long. Hang on. Let's just say purchase knowledge conference for a second. Let's just do this really quick. Let me copy that. Let's just say purchase knowledge conference for, and now I'm going to do this. So you can do um, a mix between text and then data from the data pill section over here. So for this, I'm going to say purchase knowledge conference for, and I'm going to go ahead and pick from the variables the requested for. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick very descriptive the name value of it, which is going to be my first and last name. So it's going to be purchase knowledge conference if we choose LeBron James for LeBron James. Okay. And the next thing is we can say, hey, now I want you to give all the variables here. So we're going to, where is this? Sorry, knowledge. Let's do it this way. Old school. I'm going to go ahead and expose all the details from the questions on this actual catalog task. By doing that, I chose the catalog item template, picked our actual item we just created, and say, bring all those fields over there. Now, you're going to say, well, Dante, couldn't you put that in the description? Absolutely. But I'm going to show you what it looks like once you submit it. Hopefully, we got enough time here. We got 13 minutes. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the description value. Now, this is what I was going to put everything in there. So first thing I said, hey, purchase knowledge for, and then Dante, right? The next one I'm say purchase knowledge, conference, hotel, suite on the top floor and first class airline, ticket, right? Should fly private, but whatever, right? And then the very important thing you want to do is assign it to an assignment group. If we don't do that, it will go to no one and no one will know what to do. It'll be out there just sitting. No one will know that it's there, right? So for this, I'm going to go with procurement because they do all the purchasing and I'm going to give it to them, right? In your flow, you can put it to whatever assignment group makes sense, okay? So we're going to hit done. So again, that's I call this the happy path, right? It's very happy. We're good. Now, the next one we need to do the negative path, right? So the next thing, and I'm going to finish this off here in a second. So I'm going to show you something here. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to say another if condition because it's off the manager approval here. So we're going to say if MGR rejects, right? So if the manager rejects, which is approval number 2, we're going to go here and grab that state again. But now approved, we're going to say rejected, right? So if they reject, what I like to do is something simple. I'm going to show you a little trick here. I'm going to put a log statement here, and I'm going to say request canceled, right? Let's also say if the manager approves, but then finance rejects, right? So we got to do that again off of this tree. So we're going to do another if condition off the secondary tree and say if finance rejects, right? So then we'll go to our number 4 approval, which is where finance is. Drop that there, and then also rejects. Now, I'm going to do a log statement again, like I did to the other one. And I'm going to say also request canceled. Now you're going to say, Dante, you're not setting any state values anywhere. What's going on? Why are you not? What's happening? So I'm going to show you that all in a second. So the last one here, I'm going to show you one little trick. I can add another log statement here, say request completed when everything is approved and happy path and it's all great. So I'm going to do that, finish that here. So this one, I'm putting request completed. And then once it's completed, what we do here is one thing that I like to do that I think is one of the best practices I think out there is over here on the far right corner. We want to add flow stages, okay? So in the flow stages, there's a drop down here. You say change request. It's not. We want a requested item. These are out of box stages, okay? Now I'm going to add all the stages. Now, once I add them all, before I save, I'm only going to take the ones that I need. We don't have a delivery stage, so I'm going to get rid of that. We have fulfillment. We have waiting for approval, when it's approved and completed, and we also have canceled. However, if I leave them in this order, that's how they would show up to the user. So the first one would be request canceled. We don't like that. So the first one, the thing we're going to do in our process is we're waiting for approval, right? Then once after we wait for approval, it goes to approved. Then the fulfillment stage, right? Because it goes to the actual task to be fulfilled. And then ultimately it is completed. I like to put canceled at the bottom because the happy path goes through this. Then if it is canceled, it's going to skip and go to the end. I'm going to show you what this looks like in the next 8 minutes. Oh, I can't believe too much time. All right, so let's save that. I'll try to speed this up, but I just really wanted to show you now, how do you use these stages? And I'm going to be very clear on how I explain this for you. So once you come in to this, I have asked for approval. Now I can hover over this and right above it, this here is going to say add stage. I'm going to put awaiting for approval. Now I can add, I didn't do this because I don't have the time, but I could add custom flow stages. So I could have put awaiting manager approval, awaiting finance approval. I hope that makes sense. But I just used a simple one out of box just for now, awaiting approval. So I did that for manager. I also did that for the finance because we're still in that stage of awaiting approval. So we'll stay in that stage until it's approved or rejected. So once everything is approved, so we got two tiers, right? Manager approves, finance approves. Here, we're in the fulfillment stage, right? So again, we're going to add stage, sorry, fulfillment. Oh, wait, hang on. Sorry, back up. Back up. Sorry. One thing I want to do is like, I always like to say when it's all the way approved. So if it go past those two and it says finance approves, so we're going to go ahead and say request is approved at this point. Then once we get to the catalog task, we're going to say this is the fulfillment stage. Always when it gets to the task and we're working on it, you're fulfilling that request at that point. In this tree, we said the request is complete. So the same thing here, we're going to add the final stage, which is completed, right? Now you're going to say, Dante, why do that? Two things. One, it shows a user the visual of the stages throughout the process. Second thing is ServiceNow in the actual flow, when you do this, it will automatically close all the different elements that are created when you follow the stages. You do not need to update your flow, designer flow, with saying update a record and update the state on each, either the RITM or the REQ if you use stages. Okay? Just want to make sure that's clear. So if they reject, right? So we're going to go here again. If rejected, we're going to say the stage is request canceled. Same thing if their manager rejects, because again, we're saying request is canceled. We're going to put that stage again there. Request is canceled. Okay. Very important thing at the end here. So wait, hang on. Let me just do the final things in. I will go ahead and I like to put my ends at the flow. It's over, right? Also, if it rejects here, the flow is over. And also if it rejects at this level, right? The flow is over. I know I'm speeding it up. I'm so sorry if somebody any more questions. No, no. Okay, good. So the very important thing now that what you do is you want to save your flow. Very important. Now, I just saved the flow, right? it will not run unless I activate it. So you want to also activate the flow. Now you're going to say, Dante, why do I have save and activate? Because you may be working on a working draft and you may not want to activate it just yet, right? So that's why they have save and activate. So that's the difference. So you may say, hey, I want to edit this, and you make some modifications, then you save it, but then you don't activate it until you're done with everything. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the item. So now what we have to do is tie this flow to the item. So in the item itself, there's a process engine and there's the flow. We essentially just select. Now I could do type ahead and select it. And there is attached to the flow designer, excuse me, attaching the flow designer to the request. So I'm going to save this. So there we go. So now your form's built, flow's built. Let's quickly, in the next 4 minutes, let's just pull it up in a service portal. And I am sorry, I'm a little long-winded here. I'm just trying to give you as much detail as I can on this. I will stay a little extra if for those who want to ask questions, okay? So let's go ahead and we'll put in the name of our item. I'm going to do a search for this name really quick in the service portal. So let's go ahead and search. All right, so there's our form. It came up in our search. We're going to hit request. And this is what it looks like on the service portal, okay? Now there's so many options I could have chose to take off quantity, delivery time, etc. Actually, let's go ahead and just do that really 2 seconds. So on the portal settings of that item, I could say my request method, I don't want to do order. I want to say they want to submit. When they do that, it automatically hides add to cart, quantity, delivery time. So I'm going to keep that, save that for now. We're going to go back to, let's close this and this. Back over here, I'm going to refresh. And there you go. There's our submit. Okay. Now, we're going to change from system administrator to our good old dear friend, today's GOAT, LeBron. Okay. Now, his manager is Michael Jordan, and he wants to go to knowledge. And of course, hey, if LeBron wants to come, he's getting in free, but he still has to have Michael Jordan approved. So I'm going to say, hey, I would like to see Dante, as I heard he is great. I mean, I'm not saying that about myself or anything, but it's, just for an example. Okay. All right. We will submit that. Now, here's the beauty of the stages. Okay. So I'm going to refresh this page because there we go. All of our stages we put in our flow for the end user. Okay. They now see where things are. Okay. It is waiting for approval. That's what they know. This is how the beauty again of the actual stages. Now, 2 things, they can click on this from a user perspective. They can see again the stages, right? Where they are, right? They see the information this is requested for LeBron. Now we come in here, if we wanted to add attachments, they could choose a paperclip icon. I can go and pull in my desktop. I got my test attachment, right? Attach that. And then also they could see the details that they submitted, okay? So this is the information they gave. If there's any activity that they say, hey, I forgot something, right? Oh, I forgot to mention I only fly private, right? And they can also put that information to the people who are fulfilling or approving this request. All right. I'm going to open up for any questions really quick. Again, we went through just a catalog item, creating it from beginning all the way through the flow, using UI build in the very beginning, then going to Dante's beloved backend views, which is from the original, as I call old school. But any questions? I just try to be respect of time. Where will this video be posted? Oh, I have a YouTube channel I'm going to post it on. I'm just going to edit it up a little bit. and I will drop that by this Friday, and I will share it out to all of. I'll put it on LinkedIn too. I don't care who sees it, but I will share it for everyone. Okay, Lynn? But thank you. Oh, and I'm glad you think this is great. Thank you. Hey, thanks. Hey, Ben, how you doing, man? Thank you. Thank you for joining, Ben. Um, so yeah, so any other questions? I'll say this last piece and I'll wrap it up. Again, I'm just like to be respectful of your evenings. I do appreciate you all joining. I really, really, really do. Oh, wow, 20 participants. That was great. Um, this is okay. You're welcome, Jasmine. Jasmine said this is very helpful. The last thing I'll say is I will be having a series on this, and you can thank those who came to my the developer meetup. So the next phase of this, I'm going to walk you through other areas of the catalog. Okay, we're going to do more of the catalog UI builder because I think want to be fair and show those people who to show those who are using that. We're going to walk more of that. We're going to walk more into all the different variables, client scripts, UI policies, and then also ultimately we're going to do the how you connect it to the service portal. Say I just jumped there, but we're going to do that. So I'm going to have these every couple of weeks. So in 2 weeks, I'll have the next one. And if anybody wants to join, we'll just keep that going. Okay. Um, all right. Questions. Thank you for the presentation. I was not aware of the flow stages. Good. I'm glad, Erica. All right. So if anybody has any other or great demo, thanks. Yeah, all right, awesome. Thank you all for joining. So I'll cut it here because I'll keep talking. I just love to help those who need. If you need anything from me, if you need any assistance, again, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm looking at about 2 day turnaround on responding on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, I get so many messages. But if you just give me a couple of days, I'll get back to you. But if you need anything, just let me know and reach out. I'll be happy to help. Okay. Thank you all again for joining. This is great. I really appreciate your time. Have a great, great evening.